Daf-Yod. Nachman says that a person who performs an act of acquisition by lifting an item on behalf of another, the other person is not acquiring ownership of the item. My time, what's the reason? Because a person is seizing assets for a creditor in a situation that will result as a disadvantage for other. As the leva owes money to other creditors as well. The din is like person who seizes assets for a creditor in a situation that will result in a disadvantage for others does not acquire the assets for him. Although a creditor can himself seize the assets as payment for the debt, no one else can take action that will benefit one person at the expense of others. Similarly, since everyone has equal rights to an ownerless item that is found, one cannot deprive all others of the right on behalf of another person. The found of a laborer, something that is found belongs to him and not to the employer for who he's working at the time. When do we see this? That it belongs to the laborer. When the employer told the laborer to perform a specific task, he said to him, weed for me today, till for me today. Since the employer specified the task that he hired the laborer to perform, the laborer has rights to the item that the laborer found. But if the employer said to the laborer, work for me today, without specifying the nature of the work, this is the found item of the employers. It's much that the laborer can acquire an item for someone else, which contradicts from Nachman's principle. So later, Nachman said to him, Shani Peo, labor is different. The other could be Kiyad Balabayasu. His hands is like the hand of the employer. He's considered a shliach while he's working for him. Rav responded, doesn't Rav say Peo Yachalazu for the Pechatzeim? Laborer can reconsider and quit his job even at midday. So what do you see? The relationship between the employer and the laborer is structured for the benefit of the laborer. So Amalei said to him, Kol kam as long as he did not retract his commitment, Yad Balabayasu, says the employer's hand. When he does retract his commitment, he's able to do so. But this is not because matters are structured to benefit the laborer, but it's another reason. For me, the children of Israel are slaves. They're my slaves and not any other. So a yid can never be enslaved to another yid without a contract, which he cannot release himself whenever he wishes. Nevertheless, as long as the laborer does not quit the job, he's considered as an employer's agent. Person who performs a key by lifting a found item on behalf of another, the other person acquires ownership of the item. And if you're going to ask for a Mishnah seems otherwise, it's referred to a case where he says, where the writer says to the guy, give it to me, but does not say acquire it for me. So the Mishnah, if a person saw a found item and fell upon it, tending to never acquire, but did not employ one of the normal methods of acquisition. Another came and was machzig. Says the one who seized it acquired it because he employed one of the formal modes of acquisition. Shlaka said the name of the area of 4 amas surrounding a person has the legal status of the courtyard. And it affects the acquisition of every ownerless item located there for him. My time, and what's the reason? The Chum instituted the takanas that people will not come to fight over an item. Baya says, Mesud of Chibur Abba Pea. Chibur Abba raised them Shada, the Mishnah and Pea. Well, Mesud Rabbi Yankov Idin Nezikin. Rabbi Yankov said, the objection is from the Mishnah Nezikin. Amar Abaya said, Mesud of Chibur Yosef Pea. B'chiyah bar Yisrael raised a shada, Mishnah and Peo. Not the mixes Peo was there, called a shar. Person took some of the Peo in the field and threw it on the rest of the Peo in order to acquire it. And the klum is nothing. If he fell upon the payout, Paris Tali say, allow if he spread his garments over it, by very nice minute. Others may remove from him or his garment from the pay in order to take of himself. He doesn't require it. And the same applies to the case of a forgotten sheaf. Poor person cannot acquire in any of these manners. But if you say that a person can acquire 4 amas around them, today, why doesn't he acquire 4 amas around him? Let the 4 amas affect acquisition of the paya or the forgotten sheaf for him. What are we dealing with over here? The Amar Akne, we did not say I will acquire the paya through this acquisition. He performed the action without revealing his kavanah, therefore his acquisition isn't affected. If the Chacham instituted a takana that the area of 4 amas surrounding a person acquires property for him, so the Amar might have it, that even in the case where he did not say, I will acquire the produce, what is of it? Shouldn't he have acquired it, even though without expressing his kavanah to do so? Or says, since he fell upon it, he revealed his intention that it's satisfactory for him to acquire the produce by falling on it. And is not satisfactory for him to acquire produce through the takana of 4 amas. Papa says, why the Chacham instituted the takana of 4 amas be'alma? That was in the world. So the Balabais the Chacham did not institute this kinyan for him and a field that belonged to the owner. And even though the Teda accords a poor person the rights in the field, so when does the Teda accord him the rights? Specifically to walk in the field and to collect payah. But not according to the right, the field be considered his courtyard. Rava said, as a shala from Nizikin. A person found an item, fell on it, another came and seized it. The one who seized it acquires it. Now, if you see that a person's 4 amas acquires it, so why doesn't the 4 amas acquire it for him? So where it says, he didn't say I will acquire it. If they want to be talking about Banak, there where I might have it, but if the Chacham made the takana of 4 amas, who cares? So my answer is, given enough allow, once he fell in it, you're showing that he wants the nefila to be kind of, but he doesn't want the takana of the Chacham. Chacham instituted that 4 amas affects the property for him. A place of an alleyway where the multitudes do not crowd. What the Chacham did not institute this mode of acquisition, the public domain where the multitudes crowd. But it says in all places, which is Kol Makom, means to add the size of the Shir Sharam. Rish Lakish, Mishumaba came by the Tana in the Chotzer in the 4 amas. So a minor girl does not have the ability to acquire by means of a Chotzer or 4 amas. For Bechon Mishum Yana if the Chotzer, no, does that if the 4 amas. Maika Bifigi, Misawa Chotzer Mishum Sabi. Says Yana holds that placing an item in a courtyard is included as a valid means of acquisition due to the fact of her hand. So she has a hand, she has a Chotzer. Marsavar Chotzer is because Mishum Shlichus is Sabi. If the Chotzer is a Shlichus, just as a Ketana has no power of Shlichus, so too Maya cannot appoint. She does not have the ability to acquire property by means of a courtyard. So anyone who says that a courtyard is included in the valid means of acquisition due to the option of Shlichus, Latanya Biyadeh, Teda says, in the hand. And the Eliyadeh, where do we know same halacha applies to a roof, a yard, or its enclosure? any location that the stolen item is found. And if you think that the courtyard is included as a valid means of acquisition to the shlichus, we find in the case where there's agency of aveda, theft. We know if one sends a shliach to violate on his behalf, the shliach is chayav and not the mshaleach. When do we say this is when the shliach is subject to liability of the transgression? By a chutzah, the chutzah is not a bar chiyuv. So a chayiv shliach therefore the owner is chayiv. If a person says to a woman or a slave, to ginfully, go and steal from me the lab nechiv, and you know, is that one who's is not chayiv, since they're not subject to liability. Married woman and slaves are not, have no property of their own for which one could collect payments. You can say a woman and a slave are still subject to liability. They don't have what to pay back. If a woman gets divorced, gets freed, she only has to pay. So though it was not possible to collect the payment for them, they are still liable for their actions. When do we say this? Specifically, where the shliach wants to execute the assignment, he can do so. If he wants, he can refrain from it. But in the case of a courier, one places items without the consent. So the halacha is the owner is going to be chayiv. It says to Ayid, go divorce woman, a man tells woman, actually cotton, or out for the corners of the minor boy for me. According to the formulation, which was said that anywhere that if the shliach wants to execute his assignment, he can do so. If he wants to refrain from executing it, he can do so. He will opt to do or not. So then, so then you will be mechayiv. That says so haninami is keep the labrachaninu. So then mechayiv shlocha, the one who sent it, will be chayiv. When it asks about the explanation, and Mika the man amar chatzalab mishum yadu, but this only says that placing an item in the courier is not included in a valid means of acquisition due to the fact that if the acts as her hand, but time will end up brasi yoda in the other yoda gaga chatzira gafif and that learn us some mikol makim. Or says they can get called amalek to you the chatz mishum yadu. Everybody agrees that chatz mishum yadu. Completely talk about Bava Metziah Marsavar Alfina Metziah Megetz. We'll learn Metziah from Get. Marsavar Alfina Metziah Megetz. You basically mechanic kol am leipli Alfina Metziah Megetz v'arabakot on kumliftagi. Talking about a minor boy. Marsavar Alfina kota mekdana. Marsavar Alfina kota mekdana. You basically marchad amar chad amar chad and leipli.